Hello, in this video we're going to discuss one of my favorite topics, which is table cleanup inside of Razor's Edge NXT. So this is something that us database administrators really love to do. It helps us to feel like we're cleaning and keeping things a little bit more organized on the back end inside of the system. So whenever you're in Razor's Edge, if you go to Settings and Tables, it's going to pull up all of the tables inside of Razor's Edge. I am going to clean up the Actions table. So I'm going to click Actions, and this is going to bring up everything that is in the Actions type dropdown. One of the things that I really love inside of RENXT that is not available as a quick sort is the sort. So inside of Razor's Edge NXT, there is a way to easily sort things that are in the table, unlike in database view, where you had to manually click to bring the things up, bring the entries up or down to basically resort manually. So if I say apply, it's going to automatically resort this table alphabetically, which is one of the things I really love in RENXT. One of the other things that you can do inside of the tables, in addition to you can add your new entries if you need to inactivate. So if we're no longer using the annual letter, you would click edit, you can click inactive and save. And then that would no longer appear in the action type dropdown. You can also click to display active entries only. So let's say we cleaned up this table to only have 5 entities, or so let's say we cleaned up this table to only have 5 entries displayed in that table. Whenever we're coming in here and we want to just kind of look at what's currently in the table and want to clean up, if we click this, it will definitely make it a lot easier, especially if you have a lot of old inactive things in the table. That really makes it a lot easier to figure out what's actually active and what we need to maybe change. You can also search. So if I wanted to find all of the current action types that had stewardship in there, I can type in and it will bring those up, which is a really great feature. One of the other things that is really awesome that you can do is to clean up entries. So if you have duplicate, so let's say whenever we were looking at stewardship, we only wanted to have 1 entry for stewardship, we can combine these so that there's just 1 in the table. Whenever you combine entries in a table and do use the cleanup feature, it's not going to delete any information. So if we wanted to say, okay, I want only to have stewardship, and anything else that's in here as alumni stewardship, automation stewardship, CMA stewardship, it's basically just going to replace the label. So it'll just say stewardship moving forward. So if we went to a record in the system that had this action type, it would now say stewardship. So it just allows a way to kind of clean up the table and not have duplicate entries that basically are saying the same thing, and it helps keep the table a lot more concise. So to kind of show you how we would update this, I've created a test action. So let's say there are a bunch of actions in the database and I no longer want this in my table. I'm going to come to cleanup, and then I'm going to select which entities I want it to clean up. So I want to get rid of test action, and you can select multiple ones, but I'm just going to click one for now. So I can select my test action. That's the entry that I want to be replaced. And then the system is asking you what action type do you want to replace it with. So I'm going to replace it with stewardship. So all of my actions that would be in the system that had that test action type are now going to show as stewardship. You have the option to delete test action from the table. So again, it's not going to delete any actions. It's just going to delete this entry from the table after it cleans up all of the actions to change them to now say stewardship. So I'm going to say yes, I want to replace test action with stewardship, and I'm going to leave this checked so that it deletes test action from my table. So once I click replace now, that has completed, and then you can see that test action is no longer in the table. So that's how you can clean up the actions table. You also can manually move things around. So if you want to have things not necessarily in an alphabetical order, where let's say there were 5 actions that you really wanted to always display at the top, 5 action types that you always wanted to display at the top. So you can manually drag those and get them in the order that you want. So you can definitely use a combination of the sort and the manual adjustments to get the table how you want it. So if you wanted to have everything in alphabetical order, but then manually put clearance review at the top, event at the top, event follow-up at the top, and face-to-face meeting, then whenever you go to a record, those 3 will display at the top in that order, and then the rest will be in alphabetical order. So if we just go look at our test record, if we wanted to add an action to Gino's record, we'll do add action. So now you can see in the type drop down, the 3 that are not necessarily in alphabetical order that we manually moved are at the top, and then the rest of the table is still in alphabetical order. So as mentioned, if you go into the table and do cleanup, it will help to reduce how lengthy this drop down is, which is really helpful in terms of having standardization and just getting different users to actually go in and enter their actions. If they have less options, it makes it a lot easier. One of the additional things I wanted to mention with table cleanup is if you click into the ellipses for any action, one really useful tool is to click view uses. So if you're curious of, do we even need an action type of event follow-up, this will show you that you have, it'll show all of the system record IDs for the records that have this. So we have 1 record in the system that has that action type. If we wanted to see, okay, how many uses does face-to-face meeting have? So we have a lot more. And you can click export to be able to get a list. If you needed to do something globally, you can also copy it. If you needed to paste those into a query and do some cleanup or just to look at them, you can do that as well. You can also, just for any one, if you don't want to drag and drop, as I showed before, you can just say, okay, I want to move this one to the top, and it will automatically bring that one to the top. I could also say, okay, I want to move it to the very end, which is really helpful if you're trying to just put all of the inactive ones at the bottom of the table. Then you could just say, okay, this one, I want to move down, clearance review, I want to move down. And then you could also say insert above. Oh, okay, ignore that. Or that's just an additional thing I wanted to mention about tables.